Hi, it's Daichi. Half a year ago, I decided to learn game development and programming completely from scratch. It was painful at first, but now I'm in love with it. I've made 5 games in that period, and here's my experience so far. I graduated from architecture school around 3.5 years ago and went out into the real world all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I couldn't wait to design spectacular buildings and public spaces that would transform people's lives for the better. Little did I know that things just don't work that way. So around the beginning of this year, I was feeling jaded. I desperately needed a creative outlet. I needed to create something. It didn't take long for me to gravitate towards game development. I had always wanted to make a game, but frankly I was intimidated by code and the sheer complexity of it all. But it was time. I was heavily inspired by games like Journey and Inside, which have beautifully crafted worlds that are not only a joy to explore, but also masterfully convey a rich, emotional story. So I set out to learn. It didn't actually scare me that game dev required competency in so many different things like coding, graphic design, animation, visual art, storytelling, sound design, music, level design, and so on. On the contrary, I was excited to learn all of that. My biggest fear was that I would get bored or stop trying in a few weeks. I had a pretty unfavorable track record, but I wanted it to be different this time. To make it a habit, I put a post-it note on my screen saying no 0% days and committed to learning game dev or coding every single day, even if it was just for 5 minutes. My main resource for learning was a Udemy course on Unity 2D, but I also referenced anything I could get my hands on: books, articles, forums, and YouTube. I even took a nighttime college class on software development because I did not trust myself to have the patience to learn it on my own. 4 weeks after I started learning, I joined my first ever game jam, which was aptly named my first game jam. I was eager to test out if I could actually make a game on my own. The theme was cold, so I came out with a game where you control a snowball rolling down a hill and you keep it from melting by going over patches of snow. As simple as it looks, it took me a whole week to figure out how to make everything work. It got a total of 6 downloads. Yay. At this point, I was pretty much clueless. Coding was still very foreign, and Unity's complex interface was still overwhelming. But more importantly, after 6 weeks, I hadn't quit yet, which was something of a miracle. The post-its were working. For my second game, I made Snake and called it Snake Eat Cake. I followed easy tuts to get the basic mechanics set up and developed it further to make it into a full game complete with a title screen, an end screen, and even a high score. It's a simple game, but I was constantly running into walls trying to make things work. I especially struggled with preventing the apple from spawning where the snake is and restricting the player from moving backwards. Despite the eternal frustration, this was a very fruitful exercise for me to further my understanding of how to write and structure code to achieve certain mechanics. I was slowly getting used to thinking in code. The third game I made was All We Eat Is Sushi, a PvZ clone tower defense game I worked on following the Udemy tutorial. I thought it would be neat if the game could be as informative as it is fun to play. So naturally, I made a game that pits stereotypical Japanese things against lesser known but interesting Japanese things. Hence the satirical title, All We Eat Is Sushi. After each level, you're greeted with a short blurb about something interesting you may not have known about Japan. I spent a lot of time creating the various animation states for each tower and enemy. This was actually quite fun but also time consuming. The UI was also an aspect I focused on to make a pleasant playing experience. At this point, working on game dev had become a habit. I didn't need post-it notes anymore. I actually looked forward to it every day, spending anywhere between 2 to 5 hours after work, and even the whole day on weekends. What helped was that I was starting to get it, as if a light bulb had just turned on. Whenever I wanted to implement a function in my game, I didn't always have to rely on the internet anymore. I was able to find a way on my own. And this gave me confidence, as well as a renewed sense of motivation, as I was seeing tangible results in my skill set. About 4 months into my game dev journey, and 2 months after my first game jam, I participated in Ludum Dare 46. I had just completed the 32-hour Udemy tutorial, so I was feeling a lot more confident this time around. The theme was Keep It Alive, and after 3 days that felt like an eternity, I ended up with Oblivious Olivia. I made a devlog video about it if you're interested. It got about 30 plays, and it ranked 729th out of 4,900 entries. Then I worked on a few idea projects that went nowhere. 5 months since the start of the treacherous endeavor, I joined the Game Dev TV Community Game Jam. The theme was time and I had a month. I spent the first 2 weeks fiddling with ideas I ended up throwing out. Then I decided to go with a simple puzzle platformer where you can stop time. I spent 2 weeks developing the game. I made 2 devlog videos that go into details of the process, so check them out if you're interested. Unlike the previous games I made, this one was played by a lot more than just a handful of people, and it was very well received. I ended up getting second place out of 226 submissions, so not too shabby. After the game jam, I spent some time refactoring the code as it was a complete mess. I looked into design patterns and optimal ways of organizing your scripts for scalability and ease of maintenance. So here I am, 6 months of game dev experience under my belt. It has been intense and challenging to say the least, but I can honestly say that it's all been absolutely worth it, and I look forward to what's to come. Needless to say, I've only scratched the surface of game development. There are so many cool things that I want to try out, like shaders, procedural generation, and AI to name a few. For my next game, I'm thinking of making either a horror game, a planet builder, or a gentle exploration game. Oh, and I really need to try out 3D soon, and I'll be making videos about them, so stay tuned. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.